E Pluribus Unum, the complete audiobook, written by J. Carhayaken Jones. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
In the bliss of ignorance, mighty giants exist. The sky turns angry, raining down boulders of dust. Set ablaze today, their death is a must. Demons of rocks approach, rain of chaos to land. An epic song, an orchestra of death. 60 million years to pass, notes of debris set to sound. It is played loud and strong to pummel from above on waters, cities, and lands. A scientist looks to the sky, her thoughts secure humankind's fate. Doom is set, there is an end date. A plan is presented, all nations agree. Humans will not die, coming together with one goal, one task. Our destiny is not to fade or drift away, but working as one, our mark is here, it will stay. E pluribus unum, a place for all to exist. One from many is the cry, many nations to one people. The shadows await, set to destroy. Glory to God, His might will be obeyed. The many against the one, sabotage, sacrifice, chaos. The plan for one must never be. A friend's embrace, love is secured. Coded whispers forever here, unafraid. A pilot of great resolve, strength and control into the rocks at her command. Then to rise and side by side, conquering the dust of beast. Success today, coming together in a feast. E pluribus unum, one from many, all to see. Build our arcs, massive and grand, break the bonds of gravity. E pluribus unum, hearts on fire, a symphony of hope, one voice to inspire. From many the one, the stars belong to us. A new dawn arise in an endless night. Our hearts as one, many nations together. E pluribus unum, it shall be done.
The impact sent debris thousands of miles across planet Earth's surface. The shockwave destroyed millions of square miles in seconds. The Earth was scorched from the intense heat wave generated by the impact. It was a wasteland of burnt organic matter that lay spread across a vast area of devastation. No being mourned the loss of the dinosaur. That was the first impact that changed Earth. There would be others. Year 0 hour 0 minute 0 second 0. Chapter 1. Linda Cooper walked into the office and headed straight to her desk. She checked her email and was thankful the inbox had 100 messages instead of 200, like yesterday. Most of her time was spent answering questions. What is your day like? Are there aliens out there? Have you seen Martians? Click, and another email answered. Linda was on her second cup of coffee when Paniqua plopped down at her desk. Girl, traffic sucks. Linda looked over to her coworker and friend. I got lucky this morning and got in front of traffic. How are the kids? Paniqua lifted up her laptop lid and pressed the power button. Good. Jason didn't want to get up, and Brad had a fit that she didn't have the right color red to wear today. Both women laughed. Linda liked Paniqua's daughter, Sally. She was smart, liked boys, and had fashion sense. She was also very pretty and was a straight A student. Paniqua got up, walked into the kitchen area, and popped in a Keurig coffee pack into the coffee maker. It was a Dunkin' Donuts special. Linda answered 3 more emails while Paniqua waited for the machine to finish gurgling out coffee. She sipped at her own lukewarm coffee when she started reading the next email. It was from a friend who got lucky and landed a government job with lots of perks. Linda considered asking her friend Gail several times to introduce her to the director of analysis and actions, but always chickened out. Gail's friendship was important. The thought of Gail thinking the friendship was less than genuine knotted up her stomach. Linda's PhD, based on the idea that a large number of massive meteors crossed Earth's orbit every few million years, would be achieved by her hard work. Though access to one of the world's best supercomputer would get the diploma in her hand sooner rather than later. The coffee, Linda decided, was not salvageable. She pushed the cup aside and read the email. Hey Lynn. Quick note, tomorrow I'm flying in. Let's do lunch, maybe dinner, and possibly breakfast. Wink, LOL. I got something we need to talk about. Kisses. Gail. Linda brushed some loose strands of hair behind her ear. Gail really did have an effect on her. Paniqua sat down sipping her freshly brewed coffee. Gail. Linda rapidly blinked a few times and looked over to her friend. Huh. Gail, right. Maybe, Linda blushed. Teasing you again. Maybe. She twirled some hair around her index finger. Just ask her, Paniqua said. It's not like she'd say no. Suppose she does. Paniqua shrugged. Then you stay friends, no biggie. Linda watched Paniqua sip her coffee and go through her email. She's a single parent, she thought. She grew up in a poor family, had been harassed by the police at an early age. It's a wonder she still had this wonderful outlook on life. Linda sat back and let her mind drift. A moment later, her phone buzzed. She pressed the answer button and placed the phone to her ear without looking at the screen. With practiced ease, she said, Hello, Linda here. Hey, Lynn. Gail, Linda looked at the caller ID. I'm downstairs. Wait, what, downstairs? Linda heard Gail's laughter through the phone's speakers. It was fresh and lively. Surprised. Linda stammered, Well, yeah, I am hungry too. Really, where are you? Downstairs. Seriously, I'm hungry, I want to eat, now. Linda thought Gail's weak chuckle was cute. Okay. She turned to Paniqua, who had unconvincingly acted like she wasn't listening. Go, girl, Paniqua said. Eat something for me. I'll be down in a sec. Linda stared at the phone for a moment before pressing down on the hang-up button. She said to no one in particular, as she got up from her desk, I wonder why she is here. Paniqua shrugged. Open mouth, move lips, and ask her. Linda nodded, grabbed her keys and fossil-faded black clutch wallet. She unzipped the top and made sure she had money and the good credit cards. Zipping the wallet back up, she headed out the door. I'm sure I'll be back in an hour, she said as she walked out the door. Paniqua yelled, I'm not the one you're trying to convince. She laughed. Linda saw Gail, sitting in one of the 4 lobby chairs near the front sliding glass doors. Gail smiled brightly and got up. She was wearing dark blue Promise Lego pumps, faded Levi, and a matching blue crystal blouse. Linda thought her friend looked cute and lovely. She herself had a terracotta peasant blouse and wore jeans that were not as faded as Gail's. With her Vans, she was about the same height as Gail, who was actually 2 inches shorter without the pumps. Gail met Linda halfway to the lobby and gave her a nice, firm hug. She held it for several seconds, rubbing her hand along Linda's shoulder. She stepped back and said, Lynn, it's been a while. Linda nodded. Gail grabbed her friend by the arm and led her back to the elevators. I parked in Valet and... Valet, we got extra money now. I got some, and it's buying you lunch. I was gonna... Gail waved it off as the elevator doors opened. Yeah, we need to talk. Linda hesitated. Gail pulled Linda into the elevator. Tick-tock, tick-tock, I'm hungry. A moment later, the elevator reached the garage floor. Gail stepped out with Linda in tow. She made her way to the opened plexiglass window and slipped the valet ticket stub through the opening. The guy behind the glass took the ticket. He checked a clipboard, stepped from behind the window, and waved for a coworker. Gail approved of the dress code: black pants, white shirt, shiny blue vest. A minute later, the two were cruising down Wilshire Boulevard, toward Restaurant Row. Gail had retracted the hardtop on her Volkswagen EOS. She enjoyed the wind that streamed down around her head and neck. Her hair flowed outward as traffic seemed to bless them by not being heavy. Gail asked, "When was the last time you ate at Fogo de Chao?" "Never. I've heard of it but never had a chance to go." "And there it is," Gail said as they pulled into the lot. It was about halfway full. "We got lucky," Gail thought. Both ladies got out and headed through the doors. The hostess said, "Bem-vindas. Como está, Miss Holloway?" "Bem obrigada, e você?" The hostess smiled and answered in English, "Good. Your table is ready." Linda said, "Ready, you expected us." The hostess name tag read, "Livia." She smiled and walked the two women to a small, somewhat private table near a back wall. "The gaucho will be out in a moment. I'll tell him your usual wine." "Obrigada." Linda leaned in close. "They expected us." Gail nodded. "I've been here a few times." Linda frowned. "I thought you were still in Lexington." She sat back. Gail said, "Are you pouting?" "No, yes, no." "I think you are." Linda slowly said, "No, I'm not pouting, just..." Gail laughed. "Kind of cute when you pout." "No." "Okay, so you're not pouting." A tall gentleman holding a bottle of Kunsuntis Barrique Pinot Noir said, "Good afternoon, Miss Holloway." He was slender and stood at 5'11". Gail approved of his close-cut black hair, dark eyebrows, and naturally red, thick lips. His eyes were bright green, and she liked his smile. Consentus. Gail nodded. "Excellent Davy." He poured the wine into decent-sized glasses and placed 2 palm-sized discs in front of Linda and Gail. "What's this for?" Linda asked. "Green means you are ready to eat. The red means hold." Davy walked away. "How long had you been here?" Linda asked. "About 2 weeks, and before you pout again." "I wasn't pouting, I was..." "Pouting," Gail chuckled. "And my boss had me running around the city. I knew I'd get a break and I wanted to spend that free time with you. So there." Linda relaxed and slowly smiled. She felt a twinge of guilt for thinking the worst. Gail was her BFF. "Meat or side dishes first?" "Pardon," Linda said, blinking rapidly. "I'm really here for the meat. Maybe a salad, but meat definitely. And the wine." Linda took a sip. She nodded and drank deeply, finishing off half the glass as seconds. "Meat." Both women turned their discs over to the green side. The final nail in the coffin of mighty beasts that roamed the land was driven about 66 million years ago. Its impact was so devastating that their death secured a second sort of ending for a future species millions of years away. Humans consumed the remnants of this dynasty that ruled in the hundreds of millions of years. Their majestic legacy depleted, by combustion, in a mere century. Year 0. Day 0 hour, 2 minute 12 second 15. Chapter 2. Gail's face felt numb. She wasn't drunk, not quite, but the buzz she had was close enough to get her into trouble. Linda was in better shape. She only had 2 glasses of wine, and eating just bread and meat helped stave off an embarrassing end to a wonderful lunch. When the valet pulled up with the car, Linda reached for the keys. Gail didn't object and blissfully allowed the gentleman to help her ease into the passenger seat. Linda tipped him a 5 and readjusted the seat and side mirrors. The rear was okay. She looked over to make sure her friend was secured and snapped in her own seat belt. "Seems like I should take the rest of the day off," Linda stated. Gail nodded. "I think you should. We still need to talk. I'm staying at the Hilton near LAX." "The Hilton it is." Linda merged into traffic and tuned the radio to KCRW. Press play was on, and it set Linda in a sober mood. Gail just enjoyed the buzz. She was with her friend, and that was good. Later, she would drop the question. Her boss had been in a dozen high-level meetings with management at JPL in Pasadena. He was on a recruiting mission, and only the top would do. When she told him of Linda and presented her credentials and past articles and paperwork, he was convinced she would be a valuable team member. He said, "Convince her. Any way you can but convince her." Linda pulled the Volkswagen into valet and was helped out. The 405 freeway had been surprisingly open, and she was able to maintain a speed of 65. The trip to the hotel was pleasant. Gail stepped out and waited for Linda to receive the ticket stub. They both walked through the sliding doors, past a clump of gibbering tourists. Gail couldn't make out the language. It sounded like it should have been Dutch. Once in the elevator, Linda cleared her throat. "What floor and how are you feeling?" Gail smiled and brushed away hair that had fallen in front of one eye. "Good. I'm feeling good. Top floor." The ride to the executive suite's floors was uneventful. Gail's buzz was fading fast, but it was enough to dull her inhibitions. Once off the elevator, Gail led Linda through a hallway most people never see. The rich interior and subtle hues of brown and tan softly whispered the elegant and hidden opulence behind each door. When Gail opened the door to her suite, Linda gasped. The room was lovely and aesthetically pleasing. "By the table," Gail said. Linda walked to it and noted an iron bucket filled with ice and a bottle of champagne that no doubt cost half her week's salary. Gail pulled the bottle from the bucket. She wrapped it in one of the towels that was on the table. She grabbed the cork, twisted several times, and pulled it out. The pop sound was satisfying. Linda remarked, "You've done this a few times." Gail's laugh was soft as she poured champagne, enough to make it look easy. She handed a glass to her friend. Linda took it and sipped. "Are you trying to seduce me?" Gail caught herself from spitting the champagne out. One must not spit champagne out, she thought. Maybe. Linda sat down on the chair nearest her. "Just wondering." She took a sip. "Is it working?" Gail asked, sipping at her own glass. "Depends," Linda giggled. She couldn't keep a straight face. Gail sat on another chair. "I did miss you." Linda nodded and took another sip. She tried to make the sip seem natural and nonchalant. "I missed you, too. I really was surprised to see you today." Gail smiled. "How's the PhD coming along? I remembered you sent me an email about upcoming prelims, but you never said what happened." Linda shrugged. "It didn't go so well. I have another one set for next month. It was tough." "I can imagine. I remember mine." "But yours went so well." Gail laughed. "Yes and no." "Really?" Linda took a drink and the glass was nearly drained. Gail topped off both glasses. "One of my advisors was a sexual predator. Bastard." "What?" Gail nodded. "Yeah, he told me that he'd back me up 100% if I did him a trick or two." Shocked, Linda just stared. "I reported him and the school administration worked with the local police. I wore a body recorder. Well, after that I had to pretty much start from scratch." "Oh, so that's why you became distant suddenly. I thought it was something I did." Gail shrugged and sighed. "I couldn't tell you at the time, and when it was said and done, I got hired at Lincoln." Both women remained silent. Gail said, "Sorry to be a downer. It was on my mind and I had to tell you." "It clears a lot of things up. I felt bad for weeks, thinking I did something wrong." Gail shook her head. "Never you, but to the question I have for you." "Yes," Linda responded. "What would it take for you to delay your PhD?" Without hesitation, Linda said in one breath, "A good-paying job in a field I like with good hours and benefits." Gail drained her glass. "I can do that." "Do what?" Linda asked as she finished her glass. "Get you a great job and—" "No way, seriously." "Yes way, seriously." Linda put the glass down and looked Gail in the eyes. She had known Gail for about 10 years now, and throughout those years Gail never lied to her. Maybe withheld info, as she just discovered, but never lied outright. "How much and what do I do?" "Watch the sky, take photos, calculate heavenly bodies, stuff like the usual things astronomers do." Linda held out her glass. Gail got up. There's more in the kitchen. You hungry? I have the munchies. Yes, please. Something salty. The two laughed. A few moments later, Linda heard the familiar pop of a cork and the rustle of a bag of chips. Gail walked back to the table. She filled both glasses and placed a bowl of potato chips in the center. What's the catch? Pardon, Gail said after taking a sip. Are you seducing or recruiting? Maybe both. She took a bite of a rather large potato chip. Maybe both. She repeated the words again, but softer. Linda had to lean in to hear her. Maybe both, she thought. God, I missed you. That was the champagne talking she knew. Liquid courage, her father often said. Drink the right amount and you'll do anything and everything that is badass in the world. Then he'd shrug and finish his cup. Now whether you'll look good and survive is another question. You always have the choice to walk away. Gail's lips were soft and warm with just the right touch of moisture. Linda pressed in and felt her tongue. God, I missed you, she thought. Then with a sigh she pulled back. Why me? Gail leaned back. I really can't say much. It's an astronomer position that requires deep and out-of-box thinking. And it happens to be about your dissertation on transversal massive and mega-extraterrestrial close proximity debris cluster fields. Linda nearly dropped her glass. Gail watched the different emotions play across her friend's face. Confusion, anger, surprise, denial, excitement, acceptance, lastly joy. Linda whispered, How much? Twice the amount you're making now. She let the silence linger for a while. Will I be working for you? Gail shook her head. We'll be part of the same team. When would I start? Tomorrow, if you like. Linda's eyes teared up. Gail had to lean in closer to hear. She thought she said yes. Linda, I didn't quite hear you. The smile of her friend's face was wide. She cleared her throat and said, Yes, I'd like to start tomorrow. Mission 1 accomplished. Year 0 day, 1 hour 9 minute 36 second 10, Chapter 3. Ted Piper looked at the young woman who sat across from him. Gail had called and said Linda accepted. Linda, it is nice to meet you. They shook hands. Gail leaned back and watched. The waiter had left with Linda's and her drink order. Ted had been on his second rum and coke when they arrived. Did Gail give you a rundown on our operation? Not much, except I would be doing observations, calculations, and postulations on something related to my dissertation. Ted nodded. Pretty much. After all the paperwork has been filled out, I can tell you everything you need to know and then some. You have any problems moving to Maryland? None. My brother lives out here. He can check on our mom. I do have some pets. Not a problem. We're pet-friendly and understanding. Good, Ted raised an eyebrow. Something we need to get out in the open now. Linda hesitated a few seconds. She took a deep breath. Yes. She took another deep breath. Flying scares me. Ted paused for a moment, took a sip of his drink and looked at Gail. I see. Linda's swallow was audible. After a second sip, Ted started laughing. It was reserved. A moment later, he finished his drink. Would 5 days be enough to make the drive from L.A. to Maryland? Linda wished she had that drink in front of her. It would. She made a quick mental calculation and figured 3.75 days would work with the second and third day the longest on the road. Good. Oh, Gail mentioned you have a gift. Linda blushed. Ted pulled 2 folded pieces of paper from his suit pocket. He kept one and handed the other to Linda. She opened it. There were 3 math questions on it. Number 1, 3.1415 times 11,754.8 equals meters. Number 2, the formula for gravity. Option A M1 equals 1 quadrillion 179 trillion 340 billion 162 million 4,690 4.5 teragrams. Option B M2 equals 1 gram. Option C, R equals a half the answer from question 1. Answer in Newton to 5th place. Number 3, calculate centrifugal force. A radius equals 1,600 feet. B 1.3 RPM. C 92 kg mass. What is the centrifugal acceleration in gravity and the centrifugal force in Newton? Ted unfolded his paper. It had: Number 1. The answer is 36,927.7042 meters. Number 2. The answer is 7.23972 newtons. Number 3. The answer is 0.921633 Gs and 831.509 newtons. Would you like a pen? He asked. Linda pursed her lips. Great, she thought, no pressure. No thanks. She gave him all 3 answers. Ted blinked several times, frowned for a few seconds. Wait, what? Linda said her answers again. Gale laughed as Ted shook his head rapidly a half-dozen times. The waiter dropped off the drinks. Ted grabbed his new glass and appended it quickly. Waiter, another please. Quickly, thanks. Linda handed him the questions. He looked at both pieces of paper. Wow, wait, no, wow, just wow. He waited for his drink. When it arrived, he thanked the waiter and took a sip. Linda, I'm going to give you as much information as I am allowed. You good with that? Linda nodded. As you know, we are one of the near-Earth objects' vanguards. This bit of news will hit the media in a few weeks. NASA is already working out the talking points, but several near objects that had been calculated to pass by us in a year or 2 suddenly won't. He paused. Linda frowned. Something large is disrupting existing orbits. Ted nodded. Something is. We thought maybe it could have been the elusive Planetex or maybe even a brown dwarf, but the deviation didn't fit the theory. That's where the megaclusters come in. Yes, Ted nodded again and relaxed his shoulders. You've found something. Classified. But if we were to have found something like your clusters, I would think having you on board would be better than not. Besides, there are other happenings behind closed doors that makes things interesting. Such as? Linda asked. Why astronomy? Pardon. You picked astronomy for your PhD, but you have a MS in physics and mechanical engineering, and a BS in anthropology. Now that is a wild one to toss in when you have a heavy emphasis in the practical sciences. Linda said with a rehearsed ease, I have a short attention span. Ted chuckled. I see. The waiter brought their food. Ted had lobster thermidor. Gale decided on seafood bisque, while Linda opted for a thick rib-eye and loaded baked potato. She asked for extra butter and sour cream. How do you do it, Linda? Gale exclaimed. Ted, Linda is private with that. It is okay, Gale. It just is. That's all I can say. I just know the answers. Some of the really complex questions do require me to think and even write down parts, but mostly I can look at an equation and I just know the answer. Ted nodded. Fair enough, but astronomy, why? The short answer or the long one? Ted made a show of thinking over his options. The short answer. It's the most poetic. He thought about that, and after a handful of seconds nodded. The great overdog, that heavenly beast with a star in one eye, gives a leap in the east. Linda smiled. It was one of her favorite poems. She continued, he dances upright all the way to the west and never once drops on his 4 feet to rest. Gale finished. I'm a poor underdog, but tonight I will bark with the great overdog that romps through the dark. Surprised, Linda turned to Gale. I didn't know you knew that poem. While in high school, I saw it in your notebook. You had a star next to it with the words, best poem ever. That is so sweet, Linda said, blushing. Her eyes started to tear up. What class? It was English Lit. It was first period. I remember. You sat to my right and Heather was on my left. Whatever happened to her? She married a sailor. Seriously? Gale nodded. He walked into her job one day, dressed in uniform, lifted her off her feet and walked out, just like the movie. It was awesome. Wow. Tell me about it. Suddenly the two went silent. Gale leaned in lightly toward Linda, who responded likewise. Both reached out and touched each other's hand. Linda started. I. A few seconds later, Gale nodded. Ted watched in fascination. A few seconds later, he said, well, are we going to kiss? You're killing me here." Gail said to Linda, "He really is a good boss. A bit crass at times, but otherwise a brilliant physics." Both women giggled. "What I like watching." 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. "But the heavens and the earth, which are now, by the same word are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men." Year 1. Year 1 month 3 week 1 day 3 hour 13 minute 5 second 2. Earth date 10301031300502. Chapter 4. Ted logged into the main system and checked the folder Linda said her data was in. It supposedly verified what the computers predicted. Earth had 100 years before the next mega-cluster swarm came near. There had been other encounters. One about 120 million years ago, another about 66 million years ago, and this time. The models predicted that Earth might be hit with at least one meteor or with as many as 50. One strike was scary. 50 was terrifying. He double-clicked on the file and held his breath. A minute later, a graph appeared, Earth's worst nightmare. Pity, he thought. Earth, pockmarked by 100 massive meteorites. He sat back and reached into the bottom drawer of his desk. He gave up smoking 5 years ago and he felt better for it. But now, right now, his craving for a smoke was too strong to ignore. Just several inhales, he thought, maybe one exhale. The lone pack had 3 cigarettes in it. He grabbed the pack and pulled out a stick. No matches, he remembered. That was pointless. He put the stick back into the pack, tossed the pack back into the drawer, and left the room. He needed to talk to Linda. He also hoped Gail was nearby. Linda sat staring at a graph filled with numbers and lines. To someone outside, the image looked like something from the stock market. She turned when someone knocked lightly at her office door. "Come." Ted opened the door and walked to one of the chairs at her desk. He was silent for a moment. Linda looked up. "I haven't slept in 48 hours. Ted replied, "I do think I won't be able to sleep in the next 48 hours. Linda asked, "What's next?" "I sent this info up the chain. The president should get it by the morning. The chief of staff will break it up into sound bite and talking points. She'll call an emergency meeting and they'll talk about it for a few hours. There'll be more meetings. I'm sure NASA will be invited to most. At some point maybe you, will sit in front of a congressional committee and answer questions, most likely to highly charged and aggressive questions. This will be a political hot button. Groups from both sides will have something to cry about. After a few months of wasted time, the president will make an announcement to the public. We'll introduce a measure at the UN's General Assembly. This is bigger than the United States. Everyone has to have skin in this game. What can we do?" Ted shrugged. "Go underground or off-planet, both is my choice. Like terraform Mars, a moon base. All of the above, but terraforming would take too long. We'd have to think outside the box. I have a friend who's deep in NASA admin floated an idea of a super large space station. Only one. It's that big. He said we could make many, with each capable of holding 100,000 easy." Gail walked in. "What's up?" Linda turned to Gail and pushed herself a short distance from her monitor. Gail understood and approached the desk. She looked at the graph, over to Linda, then Ted, then back at the monitor. She saw the red-colored word in the lower right corner of the graph. "Confirmed!" After a few seconds, Gail took a deep breath and uttered one word. "Fuck." Psalm 102, 25-26. "Of old you founded the earth, and the heavens are the work of your hands. Even they will perish, but you endure, and all of them will wear out like a garment. Like clothing you will change them, and they will be changed." Year 5. Year 5 month, 7 week 4 day 6 hour 5 minute 15 second 22. Earth date, 50704060 Chapter 5. Linda woke up early but decided to stay in bed for another 10 minutes. Today's training was about fire suppression techniques and getting used to the new equipment. She thought about the day the cluster swarm was confirmed. It had been bittersweet. Her PhD secured, yet that meant Earth was doomed. Rolling over, Linda let her mind wander. She remembered the day she watched the president make the announcement. Madam President spoke in a measured tone. Her voice was calm, firm, but reassuring. my fellow Americans, and to all the citizenry of the world. 5 years ago, American astronomers at the Lincoln Laboratory in Massachusetts made a discovery of grave importance. The meteorites that struck Earth 120 million and 66 million years ago were part of a super swarm of objects that cross the Earth's orbit every 60 or so million years. After exhaustive observations and calculations, confirmed independently by other countries, we know when the next encounter will occur. Before I tell you the date, I am compelled to stress that a meteor strike of this nature is a planetary environment-changing event. It is possible to survive the strike, but only if we work now to prepare. This problem is a world problem. Every corner of the globe will be affected. Every man, woman, animal, tree, and every life form will be in danger. This event will change us forever and our planet forever. She took a drink from her glass. The world presumed it was water. It was not. The U.S. presidential seal was visible even as the glass was tilted, and half the contents drained in one swallow. Calmly, but with a slight tremor, the glass was placed back down. The next encounter will occur 103 years from now. She paused. In order to preserve the human species, we must prepare now. Not tomorrow, not 10, 30, 50, or 80 years from now, but at this very moment. She paused again. Currently, NASA has been in contact with various space agencies and space transportations companies throughout the world with the goal of developing a plan that will ensure human survival. Our military will be reaching out to the world's military to help secure our best interest. War is now irrelevant. Religious differences are irrelevant. Political party ideology is irrelevant. We are now faced with something bigger than each individual. The human species is threatened. Let me repeat myself in a different way. Companies will have to set aside profit for survival. Religious groups will have to set aside ideology for survival. Political parties will have to set aside fundamental differences. People will have to extend a hand as a gesture of peace. One nation, one group, one set of people cannot and should not do this alone. We work together or we die together. It is as simple as that. E pluribus unum. She stepped away from the podium amidst sounds of cameras rapidly clicking and a multitude of flashes. E pluribus unum had been the new God bless. Other nation leaders started using it as a closing. The world took notice when the Pope ended a mass with those simple words, E pluribus unum. From many, one. Its message was simple. We are one people, period. Gail stretched and rolled over. She found Linda next to her, felt skin, and snuggled tightly. Morning. Linda rolled over and kissed Gail lightly on the lips. It was morning, and she knew she had morning breath. Morning. Sleep well. She rolled back over, grabbing Gail's arm to wrap it tighter around her waist. Gail nodded and nuzzled her face deep into Linda's hair. It still had yesterday's sweet scent on it. I did, she inhaled deeply. You smell nice. Adruku. She cupped a breast and lightly squeezed. Linda nodded and placed her hand on top of Gail's and helped her squeeze. Gail asked, "What time is it?" She looked at the clock. 9:25. Oh, shit, Gail said, getting up. She kissed Linda on the lips firmly. I got a conference meeting in 20 minutes. Linda watched as Gail's nude form dashed into the bathroom. She looked around and yawned. Reluctantly, she got up herself, put on her nightgown that had been discarded last night, and walked into the kitchen. She put on coffee, and just as it finished brewing, Gail walked in dressed. Linda handed her a heavy stock paper cup with a plastic lid. Gail took the cup, kissed her on the lips, and quickly walked out. She'd probably just make it, Linda thought. What made the last few years living on base was their office was only about several hundred feet away, which was a double-edged knife. Linda poured herself a cup of coffee and sipped lightly. It was still hot. Gail entered the conference room just as the meeting started. The opposite wall had 5 large-screen TVs attached. All were active, with 4 showing other conference rooms. The 5th monitor had the image of what looked like a fat stone and metal caterpillar eating itself. She sat next to Walter Penlayton. She mentally classified him as a pencil-neck pretentious ass with mommy issues. He was 40 pounds underweight, smelt of sand, and drank too much coffee. Half the team hated him, the other half loathed him. Usually, he had the sense of knowing when he went too far in his seemingly weak attempted Machiavellian ways. His one main contribution was that he designed the Carhayaken Ring, the fat stone and metal self-eating caterpillar. Gale understood that single-handedly, this man comprehensively developed a plan that gave humankind a second chance. Would statues be dedicated to him? In the distant future, probably. Today, he would be tolerated. "You're late," Walter whispered under his breath. Gale took a sip of coffee. "Your point is what? You can tell time." He scrunched his face up and visibly looked distressed. She could see the war of emotions playing across his face. "Nothing," he finally said. Gale nodded and decided not to snap out another smartass remark. Ted had slid a thick book toward Gale. She stopped it from colliding into her coffee and looked at the title. "A New Hope." She looked up. Ted nodded and smiled. The first important page of the book was the table of content. The Carhayaken Project. Content. Abstract. Introduction. System model. Problem statement. Materials gathered. Construction, Phase 1. Personnel. Transportation. Life support. Emergency preparedness. Ring assembly, integrity and movement. Solution. Conclusion. She flipped through the pages to personnel. The subsections were skill level of workers, more reliance of automation, and personnel screening and selection. Further into the screening section, she found the header titled Objectively Deciding Against Certain Groups. Further still, she found Political Identification and Extremist Values. Security Council finally agreed to the proposals. The General Secretary will oversee the committee selections, and general powers over the Carhayaken Ring will be given to the UN, the United States, China, Russia, South Korea, the Netherlands and Japan will oversee construction. The EU, Australia, Canada, the US, Mexico, and India will oversee personnel. The UK, Germany, US, China, Russia, and Italy will oversee interior habitat conversion. Russia and China have life support, while the US will supply construction equipment and handle most of the vehicular launches. There are more details to work out, but the framework is in place. Brazil has been selected as a primary launch point. Gale snapped her head up. The head of NASA had just finished talking. A small lump formed in the middle of her stomach at the realization that she wasn't listening. Then the main screen image switched to the POTUS. Even though her hair color had faded a bit from less amber to more gray, and underneath her eyes had seemed a little puffier than usual, she still looked good for her age, Gale thought. Greetings, fellow citizens of the United States of America. As you are aware, the Earth will face its greatest challenge in over 60 million years. Yesterday, in an extraordinary act of universal cooperation, the UN Security Council passed many resolutions. The primary resolution grants the United Nations project management over the construction of the Carhayaken Ring. Over the next few years, the United States will be gearing up for one of the greatest undertaking in our nation's history. The American people and the rest of the world will construct a habitat that will be 10 kilometers in diameter. It'll be able to house 8 million people. It will be self-sufficient, and it will only be the first of many. Earth will be facing a disaster we cannot divert. The only thing we can do is make sure humans survive. Because we know the Earth will not be destroyed, we have a second plan in motion. We will move most of our population underground. There will be vast underground cities, more vibrant than anything we have achieved. And the third and last idea will be to search for habitable planets elsewhere as we start terraforming the likes of Mars and building bases on the Moon and other heavenly satellites. As I stand here in front of you, today, our future is secured. We as a people will not die but live on. We are human, e pluribus unum. The screens went dark. Ted faced everyone. This is it, people. It's official. Project e pluribus unum has been approved and we move on to the next phase. He handed out sealed folders to everyone at the table. Walter and I will be flying out to Pasadena tomorrow. Gale, you're in charge while I'm gone. I'll expect we'll all relocate to California in the next month, so keep that in mind when making future plans. Are there any questions? Cindy, who sat at the lower right corner from Ted's point of view, cleared her throat. Has NASA finalized the date? Ted nodded. Pretty much, but that is revised often. We'll need to finish the ring in 10 years. That's all 16 segments. Sober faces nodded. Gale asked, "Will any of us be expected to travel out there?" Ted nodded. "At some point, possibly. After the first ring is completed, we think the subsequent rings will take 5 years to finish. I'm thinking we will all move to the first ring and—" Roy, one of the engineers, asked, "What about the underground projects? And there are other options." Colonization and underground. The Army Corps of Engineers has been placed in charge of Earthworm, and Virgin Galactic has the contract for US and Europe to colonize space. SpaceX, Blue Origin, ARCA, Copenhagen Suborbitals, and a few others are either building launch vehicles and are planning on building smaller space stations throughout the solar system. Roy sat back sighing. "This is it." Ted answered. "You guys can come talk to me for mission assignment. No one is going to force you to Project Unum, but I know you all to be very capable and highly competent engineers and scientists. I got tagged as one of the project managers because of your hard work and dedication. I would really want to bring you all along this unprecedented endeavor, but I will understand if you want to drop out or pursue the other ventures. Let me know and I'll make some phone calls." He shrugged. "That's all I can promise." He looked at each of the faces staring back. "Anyone else, if not, see me in my office later." He paused. "Okay, adjourned. Then, Gale, stay for a moment, please." Gale nodded and gave Walter a toothy smile. Walter frowned, gathered his paper notepad and tablet, and walked out. "What do you think?" Ted finally said after the last person walked out. "Half are gone. They had fun, but I don't think they want space travel on their resume, and I get the feeling that this project is. Until death do we part, right?" Ted nodded. Gale waited a moment. "You're wondering if I'm on board." Ted furrowed his eyebrows and slowly tightened one hand on top of a closed fist. He brought both hands close to his lips and almost imperceptibly nodded. "Ted, of course I'm in. How can I not be?" His shoulders relaxed a bit, then seemingly from an afterthought tensed back up again. "Let me worry about Linda. We talked about something like this, but I'm not exactly sure where she stands." He looked worried but nodded. Gale got up and left the room to Ted and his thoughts. Linda sat on the living room couch, looking at a documentary on the Shroud of Turin. She thought it was good up to the point where some PhD said that Jesus' body created an event horizon and therefore never really touched the shroud. Well, that just messed with a perfectly commissioned, latently biased show. Gale walked in. "Babe." Linda looked up and smiled. This was their weekend, and she hoped Gale wouldn't be too long in her meeting. "We need to seriously talk." Linda nearly panicked. She hastily turned the TV off. "The project has a green light, and—" "That's wonderful. We'll be going into space." Linda became quiet. She forgot about that part. "Okay, I'll go." Her voice was very weak. "Now, babe, this is very important, and I'm going with you." "I really would like you." "Wait, what did you say?" "I'm going with you." Gale blinked several times. She held her breath. "Seriously?" Linda nodded. "I made that promise, seriously." Gale teared up. Suppose Linda wanted to work on the other projects. Would she be able to tell her the same thing? "I made a promise." "It'll be okay," she said. Linda nodded. "Sure, it'll be okay. I only get dizzy when I look down." The end of part 1. Thank you for listening to Pluribus Unum chapters 1 through 5. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe. We are committed to creating human-written original audio stories. Until then.
Angry, raining down boulders of dust, set ablaze today, their death is a must. Demons of rocks approach, rain of chaos to land, an epic song, an orchestra of death, 60 million years to pass, notes of debris set to sound. It is played loud and strong to pummel from above on water, cities, and lands. A scientist looks to the sky, her thoughts secure humankind's fate. Doom is set, there is an end date, a plan is presented. All nations agree, humans
Prepare for E Pluribus Unum Part 2.
In the bliss of ignorance, mighty giants exist. The sky turns angry, raining down boulders of dust. Set ablaze today, their death is a must. Demons of rocks approach, reign of chaos to land. An epic song, an orchestra of death. 60 million years to pass, notes of debris set to sound. It is played loud and strong to pummel from above on water, cities, and lands. A scientist looks to the sky, her thoughts secure humankind's fate. Doom is set, there is an end date. A plan is presented. All nations agree, humans will not die. Coming together with one goal, one task. Our destiny is not to fade or drift away, but working as one, our mark is here, it will stay. E pluribus unum, a place for all to exist. One from many is the cry, many nations to one people. In the shadows await, set to destroy. Glory to God, his might will be obeyed. The many against the one, sabotage, sacrifice, chaos. The plan for one must never be. A friend's embrace, love is secured. Coded whispers forever here, unafraid. A pilot of great resolve, strength and control. Into the rocks at her command, and do rising side by side, conquering the dust beast. Success today, coming together in a feast. E pluribus unum, one from many, all to see. Build our arcs massive and grand, break the bonds of gravity. E pluribus unum, hearts on fire. A symphony of hope, one voice to inspire. From many, the one. The stars belong to us. A new dawn horizon, an endless night. Our hearts as one, many nations together. E pluribus unum, it shall be done.
Year 6. Year 6, Month 2. Week 1, Day 1 hour 12 minute 37 second 1. Earth date 602010111230 Chapter 6. Location: Conference Room, UN Building. Everyone, please be seated, Jean-Luc Pichon said as he took his seat. There were 12 delegates from different countries representing different interests. This meeting was the start of population management. Pichon picked up the booklet that was in front of him. Let's begin. Turn to page 5. I'd like us to review jurisdiction of sovereign nations in the selection of persons. Everyone turned to that page. Within the first paragraph, it is established that all member nations of the UN will select and present individuals to the various projects and eventual resettlement. Any questions? Pichon gave the delegates the time to read through the first page, of which was written in a dozen different languages. After several minutes, it was the representative from the Republic of Fiji, Tamo Tavola, who raised a question. There is a clause that, let me get this correct, is that the sovereign nation must submit the process it will use in selecting individuals during different phases of the project. Pichon nodded. Yes. Why? Because the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights has been tasked to confirm that all nations follow a practice of fairly and equally selecting individuals based on merits, skills, and needs. I see. Then we are not free to choose who we deem worthy. Pichon leaned back in his chair. This is where it would begin. The questioning and bickering. Tavola had a point, he thought. How can one say, pick anyone you want, but do it the way we want you to do it? I understand, he simply said. However, there will be a vetting process through many stages. The OHCHR would like the process as evenly fair as each nation is capable of doing. Tavola said, Fiji does not have the option of going underground like other nations. Our choices are limited, and we insist on selecting who we want to go. Our way. I see. Anyone else? Russia, China, and Italy raised concerns. The evening inched on. Pishan looked at his watch. 5 hours gone, 12 commas moved, a dozen sentences changed. Okay, what we have now is, all member nations of the UN will present a letter to OHCHR declaring their intent to be fair and select individuals based off of a criteria set forward by the governing leadership of the member nations. The criteria shall be established by the normal and moral practices of the sovereign member nation's government, as it will be consistent with the member nation's established constitution and our standing edict regarding moral, religious, and cultural behavior. Pishan let out a low sigh. We are all in agreement then. He waited a moment. Okay then, page 2, please. And thus it began. Meeting after meeting, in the many conference rooms, the push-pull play on moving to phase 1 and then later phases. Economic and religious freedom were hot-button topics. Women's rights were another. Every nation had an issue, but the OHCHR had been given teeth. It had the power to deny any country's selection residency passage. It also had the power to expel any individual who violated another resident's human and civil rights. After 8 months of meetings, conferences, negotiations, and deals, the United Nations produced a 1,796-page document, Worker Selection, to health care, to economy, to population distribution, to governing body, to democratic elections, to eventual insertion as a member nation. The sovereign nation of Carhayaken, the first experiment and one of many mega space stations, would be a country in space. Initial population, 1 million. Currency, credits, distribution of wealth, equal. Within Carhayaken, everyone contributed. There would be no royalty. The privileged initially would not exist, though there were no illusions that in the future that could change. Carhayaken citizenship meant one was part of the community, not above it. Previous titles of power and privilege were tossed. You had a skill, learned a skill, or you taught a skill. That was required. Money and fame meant next to nothing. Year 6. Year 6, month 10, week 2. Day 12, hour 1 minute 22, second 54. Earth date, 6/10/2/12/122:54. Chapter 7. The building orbit was littered with heavy cargo and mining vessels. The US, Russia, and China had 2 heavy cargo ships and 1 mining vessel each. The unofficial bet was the nation that brought in the most raw material over the first 12 months would have first choice to a habitat ring. India, South America, Mexico, and China supplied the bulk of heavy labor workers. Most of the smaller countries that couldn't supply miners contributed people to manufacturing, textile, and administration. The UK, New Zealand, Singapore, and Israel contributed mostly to electronics. Canada, the US, and Russia made most of the cargo and mining vessels. Canada, France, Japan, and Holland made half the interorbit transports. The rest of the European Union, Philippines, South Korea, Thailand, Vietnam, Greece, and Italy made the rest. The US and Russia made the launch vehicles, and the list went on and on of things to do and things to make, down to the making of much-needed bolts, wires, and electronic components. Nearly every nation contributed. The International Space Station had acquired 10 more modules during the first active year of construction. One would be the command center until Segment 1's ComCent was completed with housing. Projected completion was set at another 6 months. Linda took a deep breath and let it out slowly. She had gone through an accelerated astronaut training course. It was brutal, but she made it. She heard from Paniqua. She had been accepted into the program. She was several classes behind Linda. Her kids would stay with their grandmother for a few years before going through the program themselves. Each would choose a field, and upon graduation would follow her into space. T-9 minutes and holding, she heard over the helmet speakers. This was it, she thought. Finally, Linda turned her head to the right. Estelle, one of her classmates, seemed to be sleeping. On her left sat Jesus. He was softly humming to himself. She looked forward and started thinking about Gale and wondered if she'd look the same. Gale had sent her a selfie with the Earth in the background. Besides her hair looking kind of wild, she seemed the same. Maybe a little bit bloated in the face, but otherwise the same. T-minus 9 minutes and counting. Gale listened to the countdown from the command module. Ted gave her the time off to greet Linda when the Crew Dragon V2 module docked. T-minus 16 seconds. She held her breath. Linda swallowed and let out a good deep breath. 5, 4. She inhaled softly and held it in. The mission controller said, 3, 2, 1, liftoff. The Falcon Heavy with Crew Dragon V2 Launch 136 is on its way to the International Space Station. Its mission is to deliver the new command module crew, Pluribus Unum. Gale remembered to breathe. Linda, her wife, was coming. Life would be good, and the bed would be warm again. Year 8. Year 8, Month 2, Week 2. Day 3, Hour 12, Minute 42, Second 14. Earth date, 802020-312-4214. Chapter 8. Captain Park Seo-yeon nudged the vector joystick a bit. The mining craft Bongweng rotated along its center point and faced the asteroid. Park set the range finder to 10 kilometers and started a forward burn at 1%. Captain, Commander Tenzin Chi, the Bongweng's first officer, said, "Radar puts us at 1,000 clicks." Park grunted. "Then, we're in for a long, slow descent. Any changes in spectroanalysis?" "Rich in nickel, some other metals, there's gold and platinum." Tenzin tapped at his screen. "Water is confirmed. I think this is going to be a good haul." "About time we got a break. Any uranium?" "Nothing yet, ma'am, but there is a higher than ambient area of radiation in the lower quad. It'll rotate into sensor and scope range in about 30 minutes. I'm hoping this rock has diamond. Diamonds, hell yeah, would be nice." Chief Kirk Pascal floated into the command area and settled himself into the engineer's station. "Engines at 102% ready, ma'am." Park nodded. "We'll need those extra 2%. Kirk tapped out a command on his screen. "We got enough fuel to burn at max for 45 days. Park grabbed the control stick. "Gonna do a 5% burn for 30 seconds, then coast us into 10 clicks. That should give us an additional 32 hours at max." Tenzin said, "Kirk, 10 credits the captain is within 8%. "That's a sucker's bet. Make it 3% and you're on." "All right, 3% plus minus, or less." Kirk thought about it. "All right, I'm in, you cap." Park slowly said, "You sure? I hate taking advantage of crew, especially you, Chief." 20 credits then." Park gave Tenzin a side glance and smiled. "I'm in. Run the numbers." "Ha," Kirk tapped in the equations and started the simulation. "Damn, how do you do it?" Tenzin asked, "What's the margin?" Kirk sighed heavily. 0.5%. "What?" the first officer laughed. "Oh man, that's the closest the captain's come." He looked at Park. "How do you do it?" Park flipped a few switches and smiled. She toggled the intership intercom on. Attention crew, command deck broadcast. Engine burn aft in 20 seconds. Total burn time 30 seconds. 2 beep announcement to 5 seconds start. Secure breakables on mark." Mark. Captain out. The Bongweng's main aft engine flared to life. Thousands of metric tons of thrust pushed the mining craft forward. After 30 seconds, the main engine burns stopped, and the nozzle glowed a dull orange a few seconds before it cooled enough to turn black. Park said, "Run the numbers, gentlemen. How are we doing?" Tenzin replied, "Looking good. We should reach 10 clicks in 12 hours. "Engine's good, Captain," Kirk answered, then in a low voice, seemingly absent-mindedly, "How does she do it?" Park's smile was slight, but anyone not looking closely would miss it. A friend called it her Cheney face. "Log time and start watch, 3 hours on. Tenzin, your choice this time." "Kirk, you take first watch." "Yes, he scores," Kirk replied. "I'll do second, Captain." Park nodded and tapped at her screen. "Logged." Both unbuckled from their seats and floated to the entranceway. Kirk unsnapped himself from his station and moved over to the co-pilot station. He snapped in and tapped at the screen. "Captain, uranium confirmed." He selected soft rock as background music and started up a FPS game. Park took lead and headed to mess. She pushed off from the door jamb and sped down the long corridor to a ladder that led to the lower sections of the bongwang. She hadn't had any real food in the last 8 hours and had just started getting hunger pains. When she entered, most of the crew were seated around the dozen round tables dotting the open area. Park and Tenzin made their way to an unoccupied table. It was her usual place in mess, and crew tended to always leave it free for her. Cookie swooped in and stopped himself with a hand against the edge of the table. "What can I get you, Captain, Commander?" "Any lamb left?" Park asked. "Oh, that sounds good. Yeah, Cookie, you got enough for 2 meals. Cookie smiled. "I figured you'd want some Cap. I got a few days' worth for you." "Now, Cookie, you aren't cheating the crew, are you? I don't need any special favors." Cookie laughed out loud. "Cap, the crew would insist I take care of you. We're all grateful for the second chance." "This is a good crew." Tenzin nodded. "Cookie's right, Captain. Hey, Cookie, does that gratefulness extend to me?" Cookie turned and pushed himself away from table. His laugh was hearty and loud. "Hey, guys," he said as he entered the galley area. Tenzin wondered if gratefulness extended to him. Tenzin blushed as he heard more laughter before the door to the galley closed shut. "Well," he huffed, "I guess I know." After a moment of thinking, he chuckled. "I deserved that one." Park's smile broadened. "After this haul, you could retire." "And do what?" He shrugged. "This is all I know. My parents applied for one of the underground units." "And your sister?" "Yesterday, she sent me email. She wrote that she'll be on board the HMS Jemison when it launches in a month. She is excited." "I'd be excited too. How wonderful, Doctor." He nodded. "The youngest and assigned to trauma evac." "Good for her. Hopefully we'll never see her." Tenzin thought for a moment, then laughed. "I see your point." Cookie drifted into the mess area and stopped at the table. He held a half-dozen thick tubes of food in his arms. Each tube had a Velcro strip that easily attached to the receiving strips on the table. The food could be pushed out using the plunger on one side or scooped out using a spork. Park and Tenzin decided to spork the meal. Cookie also placed 2 squeeze bottles of grog. Park took a sip and softly moaned. "Oh, Cookie, you shouldn't have." The grog had been heated up and tasted all the more delicious as it made its way to her stomach. Cookie smiled and pushed himself away from the table. Halfway to the galley, he spotted Bongwang's doctor. "Dr. Grenier, Cap is at the usual table." Dr. Ocean Grenier, the ship's chief medical officer, drifted over to the table. Her deep red hair was short in a neat cut. She wore the standard mid-blue jumpsuit like everyone else. "Captain, Tenzin." Both nodded and made room for Grenier. Cookie came out of the galley. He had a squeeze bottle of heated grog. "Cookie, you do know how to spoil a girl, don't you?" He blushed. "Doc, anything to eat." Grenier squeezed the bottle lightly and enjoyed the warmed grog. "Maybe another round in a few. Thank you, Cookie." "I'll be out in a few to check in on ya." He pushed himself toward the galley door. Park positioned herself toward Grenier. "This haul should have us set for a while." "Really?" "With gold, uranium, platinum, and water ice." "Water," Grenier interrupted. Park nodded. "We got the big 4. "Nice. When do we celebrate?" "The computer is running analysis now. I'm thinking we'll have to go slow on this one, like 6 months slow." Grenier drained her squeeze bottle. "Oh." "Yeah." Park shrugged and sporked a chunk of lamb into her mouth. "We got the fuel and the food. This rock is just heavy." "I see," Grenier finally said. Cookie placed the squeeze bottle into her hand. She drank deeply. "Cookie, I think I will have something to eat. You have any burgoo?" Cookie beamed. "Always have burgoo. What good galley would I run if I hadn't any?" Grenier took another sip of grog. "It's not like I have someplace to go, is it?" Park answered, "Exactly." Tenzin pretty much said the same thing. "Me? I got the Bongwang here, and even though it's been through a lot, I don't see me selling anytime soon." "That's good," a voice at the entrance said. Jamie Jackman, the ship's bosun, drifted to the table. Room for a fourth. Park said, Of course, Cookie will be out in a bit. Jackman nodded. Everything is ready, Captain. I read the report Mr. Pascal posted. She's a beauty, all right. Is this the one? I got kids on Earth to feed. Grenier said, You'd be able to make them fat. That's what I'm talking about, Jackman exclaimed. Fat, happy kids. Cookie floated into mess. I thought I heard Jackie's voice, grog or a pint. Cookie is always one to take care of us. A pint, mate, thanks. Then over the ship's intercom, Captain to front deck, Captain to front deck. Park scooped the last bit of lamb into her mouth and sucked in the remaining grog. Be back, she said as she pushed herself toward the mess entryway. A moment later, she darted up through the ladderway and with a powerful push launched at high speeds to the front deck door. At the last second, she pivoted and came to an abrupt stop using her legs as springs. The door hissed opened and she entered. Captain, Kirk started. Tank pressure in engine pod 2 is down. How much? 2 points in 10 minutes. Park shot him a disbelieving look. I had to be sure if it was a sensor malfunction. Meteorite. I'll have to check. Understood. Park then flipped the ship intercom switch to on. Mr. Chi, front deck please, Mr. Chi, front deck please. Tenzin was about to start his second bottle of grog when he heard the broadcast. Grenier said, Something's wrong. Jackman raised an eyebrow and gave the first officer an inquisitive look. Tenzin shrugged and slightly shook his head. His laugh was nervous. Of course not, you. There is something wrong, Grenier stated, her voice not too loud. Tenzin tried to comfort her. I'm sure I forgot to close the bathroom door or something. Probably nothing. I'm sure there is nothing wrong. Gotta go. He launched himself toward the mess entryway and hurried to front deck. The remaining personnel in mess watched the first officer as he sped through the doorway. Several got up from their tables and rapidly moved out. A familiar old fear creeped into their minds. Most had one thought, not again, not again. Tenzin entered front deck. Kirk had reached for the intership comm unit and entered the code for engineering. Liam, Kirk said, we need a crew ASAP topside and mid-drift aft. Engine pod 2, pressure leak. Roger, pressure leak acknowledged. Liam replied. Captain, request early release from station watch. Request granted. Kirk nodded and sped through the opened doorway. Seconds later, he disappeared up the ladder way to a corridor that would take him directly to engineering. Tenzin belted into his seat and defaulted all readouts, displays, and icons back to his previous settings. Kirk customized everything, and that irked him often. As protocol dictated, he placed his headset on and checked that his spare air was in the ready. Hart counted the minutes it took for Kirk to transmit he and fire drill team were outside moving aft toward the engines. Old warnings told to her by fellow captains that her crew had been cursed. Death and destruction would follow them, and there would be no redemption. She waved the naysays off and chalked it up to superstition. Her lot was prone to do that often, and she knew this was one of them. Most of the crew had exceptional records, a few commendations and awards for heroism. Cookie was one of them. This was a fine crew, she told herself, through and through. Nothing to worry about. We'll get through this. Kirk slowly made his way to Engine 2. It was aft port when facing Bayou. MacDonald, Liam, Gupta, and Kayan, his first shift staff, formed a line as they followed Kirk. Each man barely breathed, as the engine grew larger and larger within their sights. Not again, each hoped. Not again. Do you think, Gupta started. He didn't want to be the one to put the jinx on. Shush, Kayan and MacDonald said simultaneously. Kayan continued, It can't be. Captain, Kirk asked through his helmet comm, what's the pressure? 34% loss. Her voice crackled. Kirk figured 60% loss would be enough to hamper the mission. 80% or more would mean they'd have to probably get help from another ship, which meant splitting profit. A few more minutes Kirk stopped and looked around. Guys, spread out and look for surface spray. The group fanned out and meticulously checked external piping and bulk plates. 10 minutes later, MacDonald swore. "Chief, damn, I found the leak, and something else." Kirk, like the rest, cautiously made his way over to MacDonald. He knelt close to what MacDonald was pointing to and saw a pipe had been damaged. An oversized bolt-like device was attached to a section of the pipe. There was an acid-corroded hole on top. Fluid was leaking out and evaporating millimeters from the opening. MacDonald said he found the leak by sheer luck and some intuition. Next to the leak was a device not meant to be there. "No, no, no," Kirk repeated. "This is not fair." "Mr. Pascal, report," came the crackling voice. "Captain." "Oh, yes." "Please switch to secure channel Delta. The crypt code is at my station. Use the third row down." A minute later, Park said, "Switching." Kirk tapped at the small CRT on his wristcom. "Can you hear me, Captain?" 5x5. "We have a saboteur on board. An auxiliary pipe had been tampered with, and I think we—" His voice trailed off. It was unthinkable and unfair. "Chief, what?" Kirk took a deep breath. He let it out slowly and said in a rush, "I think we have a bomb." Silence. "Captain," Kirk said, "did you hear me?" After a moment, timed rigged. "I don't know. I just know we aren't supposed to physically repair this leak." "Thoughts?" "We detached the entire Engine 2 pod and cast it adrift." And with that, he realized his words doomed the mission. They probably wouldn't have enough thrust and power to maneuver this rock to the construction site. "Kirk." He heard a softness to the captain's voice he never imagined before. Despite the crackle and feedback spikes, it had a genuine tenderness. This captain he would follow to hell and back. "Yes, ma'am." "Please proceed with detaching Engine 2. I'll place the crew on emergency alert. How much time?" "There are dozens of external bolts we have to cut. The final part of the process is automatic and can be done from front deck or engineering. I recommend not telling crew just yet." "Anything else?" "No, yeah. It should take us about 10 hours to finish." "Pretty tight between that and transferring the asteroid." Park took a deep breath. She ran the numbers in her head. It was still possible, she thought. With one less engine, the Bongweng could max burn longer, though speed and thrust would be reduced. "Understood." Kirk tapped at his wristcom and piped into the intersuit communications. "Guys, switch over to Crypt Foxtrot Uniform Charlie Kilo. Use append Echo Delta and enter your ID code." Now they would be able to communicate amongst themselves securely. "We are going to detach Engine 2. The crew will not be alerted. Yet." "Understood." The acknowledgements came in one by one. "Good." "Chief," Gupta started, 10 hours. Kirk nodded, still knowing that no one would see it. "I'm bringing in several drones. The cuts don't have to be pretty." "Understood." Kirk tapped out the command code to activate several drones. He entered the commands needed for them to start cutting the major bolts. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Park watched on several monitors, Kirk, his staff, and the drones work. The tedious task of not being able to do anything weighed heavily on her. She drummed her fingers the entire time. "Captain," Kirk's voice broke the silence. "We're done here, coming aboard." "Acknowledged," she said as she unstrapped from her command chair. It took her less than a minute to reach the main port side airlock. The large lock cycled through the many safety protocols and slowly opened. Kirk removed his helmet as he stepped back onto the port side bay area. "Captain, a few internal disconnects and we can jettison Engine 2. Park nodded. "How long?" "Another hour, maybe 2. 2 hours would get us uncomfortably close to the asteroid. Like kilometers too close." Kirk nodded. "We had to find another way to cut a bolt that was too close to the leak. Our last emergency drill had focused on." His voice fell silent. "Chief, what?" "Our last drill. We specifically focused on an engine detachment. Several reserve engineers were involved." Park raised an eyebrow. "Meaning, we may be able to find out who did this." He nodded. "Possibly the bastard." He took a deep breath. "Anyway, when we get past this, I can personally kick his or her ass for this grief." Park responded. "After I've had my turn, of course." Kirk smiled. He thought Park pretty cool-headed. She was a thinker, but she was also a fighter. She wasn't half bad in ZG Brawl, beat him a few times with some awesome moves. He turned to his staff. Guys, you know what's needed. Please keep this between us and let's get this over with. Gupta and Liam, you work the internal bolts. Kyan and MacDonald work wiring. With a nod from each, they were off. Words were not needed. What does one say when faced with approaching doom having an unknown time schedule? Tick-tock. Tick-tock. Linda had been monitoring the S-band per normal shift watch protocol. The command crew had transferred to the command segment 1, C-Zone, about 5 months ago, and the routine for monitoring radio traffic and answering calls almost seemed normal. The first month was without major problems. It was the second month, and beyond that, things started to break down. Strange, odd, and nearly impossible wire and pipe disconnects happened more and more often. Then the symbols and slogans started to show up, Abunu no Moriandum from one Dimeni. The fourth month of mishaps was annoying, until the cargo ship Palin lit the sky up in a blue flash. All 40 hands lost. The last transmission was a rogue broadcast from the Palin. The individual yelled, Abunu no Moriandum. A minute later, the captain broadcasted a request for help. His mayday went on for 5 minutes, then the surrounding sky lit up. The Palin had managed to push a 350,000-ton asteroid into transfer orbit to the build site before the explosion. Unfortunately, the resulting blast nudged the rock out of its aligned orbit and sent it into a slow spiral back into the asteroid field. There were no available miners or hauler to immediately correct the orbit. The project was put behind schedule by 2 months. It had been a week without mishaps, and Linda hoped tonight would be totally, absolutely, dead boring. She was entering the 3rd hour of her shift when she heard the message. It was coded with a level 2 crypt code. It was from the Bongwang Captain Park commanding. The message was short. Sabotage. Mission in jeopardy. Saboteur still on board. Send available for due purpose. Assist with mission or pick up survivors. Nothing follows. Linda looked up the nearest vessel. It was the Vandu. She sent a coded message with coordinates to the captain, but knew it would probably be a disaster observer site instead of a rescue mission. She then typed out a coded message to the ISS per protocol. From there, the message would be transmitted to every observatory. And of course, Linda thought the news agencies would pick it up and the world would know. The Vandu captain acknowledged her message 35 minutes later and sent the response that ship and crew are on the way. Fast burn to last known location. Captain Tekla Passini was in her cabin reading progress reports when the second shift comm officer broke the silence. Captain, message from C-Zone, rescue mission. The Vandu was set to snag a small asteroid within 5 days. The haul was estimated at $250 billion that would finally pay off her debts and give the crew a tidy bonus. It had a deposit of iron and molybdenum, and the Ficulitan Corporation wanted it badly. Passini sighed and tapped out a command on the desk command response terminal pad to check the Vandu's insurance. Damn, she thought. It only covered $50 million. Ficulitan would get $40 million. After fuel, food, and crew pay, she'd have 100,000 credits left. This would be the 3rd mission in a row that netted practically zero for her bank account. She clicked the comm button to forward deck. Bliff. A few seconds later, yes, ma'am. You heard. His voice was even. Sucks big rocks. Send the acknowledgement and prepare a spike beacon. In fact, prepare 2. I'll be there shortly. Aye, ma'am. Sending an acknowledgement and 2 spike beacons. Passini made a quick entry into her personal log and pushed herself to the cabin door. She looked around the room and realized they would have to fast burn to reach the rescue site. She turned her main lights out. She'd have to remember to instruct the crew to go on power discipline and rations. Once in the main corridor, Passini found a foot stop and pushed off toward a ladder. From the ladder, she launched herself toward forward deck and kicked out a foot against the bulk wall to stop her ascent. You figured out a fast route there. Bliff Radcliffe nodded. Yes, ma'am. 2-week fast burn, 3-day coast, 1-week hard burn to stop. That'll give us 6 months slow coast to C-Zone. I hear one of the hospital ships should be online by then. Passini nodded. Same, let's hope so. Scale the chart up on view, please. Bliff tapped out the command on main station CRT. A large, translucent image of a star chart appeared in the middle of forward deck. Passini walked up and traced a finger from their current position to where the Bongwang may eventually end up. Bliff, what if we go vertical to their orbit, then fast burn to rendezvous? I calculated that, Captain. We'd get there in 2-day transfer orbit, 1 week hard burn, 2-day red line to stop. Passini punched out engineering room on the communit. Gaka. Yes, ma'am, said the male voice. Engine status. Can we red line at 105 for 2 days? As she heard the laughter, her heart sank. Sorry, Captain. I thought you asked if we can red line, period. I did ask. Ma'am, 0.97 is redlining for us. I see. Can we sustain that for 4 days? Better at 0.92, and that'll be pushing it. Thanks, Gaka. Captain out. She turned to Bliff. Run the numbers at 0.90 for hard stop and what we can do at hard burn. Anything massive enough for a slingshot. Bliff took about 5 minutes making adjustments and inputting data. Passini drummed her fingers lightly against the top of her workstation. When minute 5 came and went, she cleared her throat. Bliff smiled. Almost done, Captain. We got several different Territon asteroids. Computer says we could make the total trip in 1 week. Please send a coded message to Season and Bongwang. Also, send her captain my compliments and request a moment of grog and skilly. Yes, ma'am. Sending coded message to Season and Bongwang along with a pointed message to Bongwang's captain. Compliments and request for grog and skilly at earliest convenience. Passini nodded. Proceed. You still have the con, Bliff. I'll relieve you in 4 hours. Place crew in emergency rescue and broadcast. We are now in ration mode and shifts are now 2 for 3. Have second mate as floater at 24/7. Bliff thought Renee was going to soil his pants. 24/7 floater was a nightmare shift. On it, Captain. Park had been reading one of her favorite novels, Grid Traveler, Rabbit Hole. The author passed away only a few years ago. He was well into his 90s. She had just finished chapter 5 when she got a coded message from the Vandu. It was their help or their savior. She heard of Captain Passini and thought she looked very pretty from her official biopic. The message read that they would be in the area in a week. Park ran the numbers in her head and realized that the Vandu might be redlining her engines. It was a first-generation cargo ship, and the engines, she was sure, needed a major overhaul. Looking up the Vandu's mission plan submission and progress, she noticed it set sail 2 weeks before the Bongwang for about 2/3 the distance, with the Bongwang reaching their asteroid a week sooner. With the eventual loss of Engine 2, the Bongwang would need the Vandu to help push the asteroid into the proper transfer orbit. A 50-50 split of profit was starting to look better. At the very least, Passini could either retrofit the entire Vandu or buy a newer ship. The payout would be that good. She keyed in her reply, returning the courtesy compliment, and added the grog was warm and the skilly hot, with both waiting for her upon arrival. Year 8. Year 8, month 2, week 2, day 3 hour 17 minute 10, second 17. Earth date, 802020-317-1017. Chapter 9. Kirk sounded apprehensive. Captain, we're ready. Proceed. He tapped in a special code on his CRT. He clicked the comm button. Guys, ready. He heard MacDonald snap. Let's get this done already. I got a bad feeling and it needs to drift away. He entered the command that released the main bolts. Done.
The end of Part 2. Thank you for listening to E Pluribus Unum, Chapters 6 through 9. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe. We are committed to creating human-written original audio stories. Until then,
mighty giants exist. The sky turns angry, raining down boulders of dust. Set ablaze today, their death is a must. Demons of rocks approach, rain of chaos to land. An epic song an orchestra of death. 60 million years to pass, notes of debris set to sound. It is played loud and strong to pummel from above on water, cities, and lands. A scientist looks to the sky, her thoughts secure humankind's fate. Doom is set, there is an end date. A plan is presented, all nations agree. Humans will not die, coming together with one goal, one task. Our destiny is not to fade or drift away, but working as one, our mark is here, it will stay. Pluribus Unum, a place for all to exist. One from many is the cry, many nations to one people. The shadows await, set to destroy. Glory to God, His might will be obeyed. The many against the one, sabotage, sacrifice, chaos. The plan for one must never be. A friend's embrace, love is secured, coded whispers forever here, unafraid. A pilot of great resolve, strength and control into the rocks at her command. Then to rise and side by side, conquering the dust of beast. Success today, coming together in a feast. Pluribus Unum, one from many, all to see. Build our arcs, massive and grand, break the bonds of gravity. Pluribus Unum, hearts on fire, a symphony of hope, one voice to inspire. From many the one, the stars belong to us. A new dawn arise in an endless night. Our hearts as one, many nations together. Pluribus Unum, it shall be done.
Prepare for E Pluribus Unum, Part 3.
In the bliss of ignorance, mighty giants exist. The sky turns angry, raining down boulders of dust set ablaze. Today their death is a must. Demons of rocks approach, rain of chaos to land. An epic song, an orchestra of death. 60 million years to pass, notes of debris set to sound. It is played loud and strong to pummel from above on water, cities, and lands. A scientist looks to the sky, her thoughts secure humankind's fate. Doom is set, there is an end date. A plan is presented, all nations agree. Humans will not die, coming together with one goal, one task. Our destiny is not to fade or drift away, but working as one, our mark is here, it will stay. Pluribus Unum, a place for all to exist. One from many is the cry, many nations to one people. In the shadows awaits, set to destroy. Glory to God, His might will be obeyed. The many against the one. Sabotage, sacrifice, chaos. The plan for one must never be. A friend's embrace, love is secured. Coded whispers forever here, unafraid. A pilot of great resolve, strength and control into the rocks at her us as one, many nations together. E pluribus unum, it shall be done.
Year 8. Year 8, month 2, week 3, day. 1 hour, 22 minute, 15 second, 43. Earth date, 802030-122-1543. Chapter 10. Passini sat tense in her command seat. The Mayday beacon signal from the Bongwang would ping strong for a few hours, then fade to background noise for hours more, then strong again, then fade again. This pattern started almost immediately after the Vandu broke orbit and vectored for the Bongwang's last known position. Bliff said, "Captain, asteroid coming up. Optics show rotation off-center." "Any sign of the Bongwang?" "Chatter." "Negative, ma'am." "How far out is comm?" 1 minute delay. Passini punched up a comm link to the Bongwang. She tapped out the command for a tight beam encoded transmission. "This is Captain Tekla Passini of the cargo ship Vandu, awaiting your response, Captain Park." She tapped in a command to repeat every 5 minutes until the system received a ping back. "How far out are we, Bliff?" Bliff adjusted his seat and tapped at his CRT. 32 hours flyby. Passini nodded. "Okay, let's start slow decelerate." She checked the fuel gauge, 1/3 left. It would take them 1/3 of that to return to Earth at a very slow burn. "We can do 132G and make it there in 63 hours. "Running the numbers, ma'am," Bliff said, a few seconds later. "First officer concurs, statement recorded." "Signal crew, please. Rotating and burning in 5 minutes. Gravity imminent." "About 7 days ago." Kirk sounded apprehensive. "Captain, we're ready." "Proceed." He tapped in a special code on his CRT. He clicked the comm button. "Guys, ready." He heard MacDonald snap. "Let's get this done already. I got a bad feeling and it needs to drift away." He entered the command that released the main bolts. "Done." Park watched as the remote cameras showed the engine pod detach from the Bongwang in a dozen puffs of smoke. It drifted about 100 meters when the engines suddenly burst into action. It flared into ignition and burned for several seconds. Kirk said, "What the hell? That's not supposed to happen." Park tapped in the burn sequence for the remaining engines. Tenzin shouted, "Captain, the engine is coming back at us." "Sound collision alert," Park shouted as she ignited the remaining engines. "Starting 5% burn. How close?" Tenzin read off the numbers. 90 meters, 85, 70, 65. Park increased engine burn to 15%. 45, 30. She pushed the engines to 25% and felt a firm push into her seat. "This burn is wasting our fuel," she thought. 25, 25, 30, 35s, 39. Park watched as the image of Engine 2 started to recede. She dropped engine burn down to 15% and started the hull reaction engines. "Read me the numbers on distance from the asteroid." Tenzin tapped at his CRT. 702 meters, 695, 692, 687. 5-second burn lateral to port at 50%. Tenzin repeated per protocol. 5-second burn lateral to port at 50%, sounding alarm. Park cut forward burn down to 2% and increased power to the hull rockets. The asteroid was getting too close at a fast burn, and she wanted to salvage the mission. 672, 669, 666. Kirk snapped. OMG, engine exploded. Tenzin sounded, "Imminent collision alarm," something no spacer ever wanted to hear. Kirk yelled out over the alarm, "Engines 1 and 3 redlining. Fuel leak." Park shut off the engines and rolled the Bongwang 45 degrees. Most of the bottom hull would take the remaining damage. Tenzin exclaimed, "Multiple hull breaches. Safety system initiated." Kirk punched in his comm code to engineering and fire control. "Report!" He waited several seconds and snapped, "Report." He looked Park in the eye. "Captain, I gotta go and handle this firsthand." He handed her his code list that had been taped to his station. "Line 5 will be secured." Park nodded and watched as her chief engineer head into danger. The Bongwang shook violently. 2 in-ship explosions. Main lights blinked out. Darkness was replaced with an amber glow. 302 meters to surface. Park tapped out the override codes for the engines. She used the reaction engines to angle the Bongwangs aft toward the asteroid and ignited engine 4. 100% burn. 251 meters, 223 meters, 195 meters, 172 meters. Burn at 102%. 163, 159, 157, 155, 154. Park throttled the engine thrust down. Burn at 10%. 153, 152.5. She let out the breath she had been holding and nudged the reaction engines to get the Bongwang parallel with the asteroid's surface. Tenzin started counting down in increments of 20 meters. Once the craft was within 20 meters, did Park increase the reaction engines to 50% to further slow the craft's descent. 30 minutes later, the Bongwang was firmly on the surface. "Tenzin," Park started, "have everyone in full emergency suit with soft mask at the side." "Will do, ma'am. Shift cycle." Park thought for a moment. "Ration shift, 4 on, 8 off. Ship midnight mark 0. No gym, main lights at 3/8, 1 bottle of grog per shift." He nodded. "You and I will do 4 on, 4 off." "Nah." Kirk and what was left of his staff finished strengthening the core spine. They started repairing the more extensive hull damage 24 hours ago. Park sat at the head of the ready room table. The minute gravity allowed her to place a cup of coffee on the table, without having to use any of the various Velcro strips littering the tabletop. With practiced ease, she was able to lift the cup toward her lips and sip at the warm liquid without it getting splashed in her face. Kirk glided into the room and took a seat. He was still in his EVA suit, holding his helmet. The microgravity allowed everyone to move effortlessly in a slide and glide sort of walk. A nice push-off, and one could travel pretty far before touching the floor. With a light tap and push, one could travel several more meters before the asteroid's gravity pulled one gently to the floor. Dr. Grenier entered next. She preferred flying as opposed to sliding. She took a seat off Park's left. Cookie entered with a low height bounce and skip. He sat and waited. The head of security, Tira Alton, flew in and expertly stopped with a series on hand grabs at floor bolts. She somersaulted across the table and took her place next to Kirk. Alton said, "Ta-da." Park shook her head and chuckled. Alton had always been one for theatrics. "You first, Cookie." "Supplies are in good shape. We have enough under normal rations for another 2 years. Water is at 80%, which is good. As long as we can recycle, we're good well past 2 years. All crew members are eating." Park nodded. "Doc, we have 5 crew down still. They're patched up, but I won't be able to replace any of the limbs until we get back to C-Zone. Only one will have to be put on permanent light duty. Physical therapy will probably take a year. Checkups are going well. Only several crew left." "Good. Including you," Grenier said. Park blinked several times. "Me, but I haven't had a checkup in 2 years." Park opened her mouth for a moment, then shut it. She did this several times. Kirk giggled and Grenier said, "You, too. And not just, I'm listening to your heart and let me hear you breathe." Kirk's cheeks flushed a deep red. "Can we talk about this later, Doc?" Grenier smiled. "Certainly, while you look to the left and cough." Cookie's laugh was infectious. "Doc, I need another checkup." Grenier shook her head. "You had yours yesterday." "I know, but you missed a spot." Park paused when she heard crackling over the main broadcast speakers. A barely discernible female voice said, "This is Captain Tekla Passini of the cargo ship Vandu. Awaiting your response, Captain Park." Cookie said, "By the goddess, that voice sounds like sweet heaven." Park finished her coffee and handed the cup to Cookie as she darted to the door. She stopped and faced everyone. Meeting adjourned. Passini waited. Time ticked by and she guiltily wondered about the Bonghuang's asteroid. Bliff. "Yes, ma'am." "Run a spectral on." Bliff soberly said, "I did." Passini cleared her throat, and Bliff took a deep breath. 3, maybe 4 trillion credits worth. Passini whispered, "My goddess," and after a few seconds, "My goddess." Silence uneasily hung between them. Bliff said, "Captain." Passini slowly shook her head. "I'm almost ashamed I thought it." Bliff blushed. He nodded. Then the main command monitor beeped. Passini had it set to broadcast on signals from the Bonghuang. "Captain Passini, this is Captain Park. Acknowledging last broadcast. Ship is intact. Structural damages are being repaired. 1 operational engine. Crew is safe, with 4 loss of limb injuries. No imminent emergencies. Supplies are in good shape. What is your ETA, over?" Passini and Bliff exhaled audibly. "Well, Captain, it was a nice dream," Bliff said. Passini nodded. She clicked on the mic and transmit icons. "Captain Park, we read you 5x5 and send an OK. ETA 60+ hours, over." Park sat at the command station and brought up the Vandu's schematics. She specifically noted engine specs and fuel capacity. She was able to triangulate the Vandu position by using the asteroid's rotation and simple geometry, angle side angle. Tenzin maneuvered to the nav station. "Captain, orders." Park nodded. "Get the velocity of the Vandu, please." "Yes, ma'am." After several seconds, he said, 298,990 kilometers per hour. Park brought up a calculator on the monitor. Tenzin leaned in and said, "Cheating, Captain." Park laughed. "No, just double-checking. I'll keep your secret if you convince Cookie to show some gratefulness to me in the form of lamb." His smile was wide. Park replied, "You'll have to do better than that." Her smile was just as wide. Passini checked her watch. Several minutes had passed, then she heard Park over the speaker. "Captain Passini, I'd like you to entertain a thought, please. Data is being sent now. Please record. Thanks, over." "Got that, Bliff?" "Yes, ma'am. Recorder is on, data coming in." After a few minutes, Passini replied, "Captain Park, data received and checksum reads okay. We'll get back to you in a few, out." Passini and Bliff studied the data. Park had laid out a plan that would get the Vandu to the asteroid in 36 hours. It required several hard burns, but at very short durations that would bring the Vandu just short of behind the asteroid, while saving fuel by 15%. With 1 medium hard stop, the asteroid's gravity would capture the Vandu and drift her to the surface. From there, the Vandu would maneuver a landing next to the Bonghuang. Passini said, "What does the computer say?" "Error is within 3%. Even at 10%, we'd still be able to do it and save fuel. Who is their nav?" Passini pressed the comm button. "Captain Park, our nav and computer concur. Question, who did the calculations? Over." After 2 minutes, the reply was short. "I did." Passini smiled. Year 8. Year 8, month 2, week 3, day 3, hour 10, minute 13, second 27. Earth date, 80203033101327. Chapter 11. Passini clicked the ship broadcast icon on her CRT. "Attention crew, this is the captain. Final approach. Secure ship for soft landing. Dress in EVs with soft masks in place and helmets in the carry. Start after 5 bells warning. Out." She brought up the aerial map and entered the Bonghuang's coordinates relative to the asteroid's geometry. Bliff started landing sequence. "Captain, landing is set." Passini said, "Very good. Broadcast 5 bells and let's start." "Aye, ma'am." Park watched the monitor closely. The Vandu smoothly and softly landed about 50 meters away. Seconds later, the Vandu's landing gear bolted themselves to the surface. Over the speakers, Captain Park Vandu has landed. Permission to come aboard. Park's smile was slight. She toggled the transmit switch on. Captain Passini, permission granted. The green all-clear LED will illuminate the airlock. She toggled transmit off. Captain Park, see you in a few. Out. Park sat back. She took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Rescue and salvage. She pressed the comm button to mess. Cookie. Yes, ma'am. Warm up that grog. We're having company over. Aye, Captain. Scuttle's already made the rounds. Grog is nice and warm. Any special request other than skilly? Can you whip up a cheesecake? Yes, ma'am. Methinks a chocolate mousse would do right. Excellent, and Ada, we have cherries. Yes'm. Cookie. She heard Cookie's hearty laugh. Yes, ma'am. A cherry vanilla swirl, too. On it, Captain. She clicked off, got up and headed to the doorway. Tenzin pressed several buttons, got up and followed her out to the airlock. Guest was coming. The airlock lights cycled from unsafe to all clear. Park pressed the open button and the door swooshed out of the way. Captain Passini and Commander Bliff crossed the threshold. Both officers removed their helmets. Park extended her right hand. Passini, then Bliff firmly shook. Welcome aboard the Bonghuang, Captain, Commander. Passini nodded. Please, just Passini. And this is my first officer, Bliff. Park and Tenzin nodded. Call me Park, please. And this is Tenzin, my first officer. Please follow me. We have accommodations for you. We'll dine in my quarters. Passini smiled. She liked this captain. She also thought her natural beauty engaging. Park, may I ask you a question? The group slowly drifted down the main corridor. Certainly. Your course calculations. Yes. I had our computer run random scenarios. It took 300 tries before it hit yours. Park nodded. How? Tenzin coughed. Beggin' your pardon and the captain's, ma'am. The captain here is a computer. I've seen her work out maneuvers in her head in seconds. She'll only use a calculator when there's too many unknowns. Passini said, I see. Park nodded and chuckled. Tenzin is easily impressed. I'm good with numbers. Well, I'm impressed too. Thanks, and here we are. Your quarters and the commander's is next door. We're informal here, more so since we're running on ration shifts. Park pressed a button and led the two in. The cabin was a 5-by-7-meter room. A single twin was at one end, and a desk, monitor, and computer access at the other. The head had a vacuum spray toilet with a vacuum mist shower. An entertainment console was located at the foot of the bed. Park said, the pantry is stocked with snacks, drinks, and grog. Passini replied, Thank you, very much appreciated. What watch are you running off? Park asked. Second dog watch. Park clasped her hands. Excellent, this would be our afternoon watch. Dinner for you, lunch for us. Would 30 minutes be enough time? Passini smiled. Yes, she liked this one. Perfect, plenty of time. Park nodded. I'll personally escort you too then. Mark 30 minutes. Year 8. Year 8, month 2, week 3, day 3, hour 15, minute 32, second 1. Earth date, 802030-315-30-201. Chapter 12. Cookie personally served dinner, which consisted of chicken skilly thickened with chopped olive oil, sautéed mushrooms, and green onions. The grog was presented in slender ceramic thermos with rubber hand grips. Cookie made sure the initial temperature was perfect. Dessert was a melon lime cucumber gelato with sea salt sprinkled on top. A dab of mint puree was on the side. The cheesecake and mousse pushed the meal across the finish line. Park, Passini began. What happened? Saboteur, our number 2 engine pod was rigged to vent fuel. After we detached and set it adrift, the engine started up and headed for collision. It exploded, crippling the ship. We lost some crew, of which I'm hoping the saboteur was among them. Passini nodded. Is the Bonghuang in shape to launch? In a few more weeks. We cannibalized non-essential equipment and wiring. My chief thinks we can be in shape to continue our salvage. Passini raised an eyebrow. Anger momentarily flashed across her face. Park caught it and nearly laughed. Passini, we are not heartless. We need your help with this salvage. Passini relaxed. 50-50 split. Capt Park, most generous. Passini blushed and took a deep breath. Park's smile widened. This salvage really is the one. We got the big 4 and then some. What's the tonnage? 500 billion. Bliff nearly choked on his grog. Captain, 500 billion. We can't move that. We could, but it'll be 6 months of moving. At least it would have been if only the Bongwang were doing it. But Park, 500 billion. The most we've done is 1 million tons. The Bongwang's done 20 billion before. It added 2 months space-time, but it was done. The cut from that allowed me to upgrade to bigger engines. We can get the other 2 engines working, but they won't have any directional ability. The Vandu could work as steering. Passini said, I'm having a hard time processing this. My idea is we'll bolt Bongwang aft of the asteroid. The Vandu will be bolted referred port. We'll use reaction motors to rotate and steer. Passini nodded. Bliff finished his grog as Cookie brought in a new batch. He grabbed a thermos and sucked out half the grog. He sighed. Okay, I think I can get this. Passini's smile was genuine. Bliff was a good nav, but she could see his mind rebelling against moving such a large tonnage. What's total move time? Passini asked. Park replied, 2 months, and that is only with 1 operational engine. What's your red line? Passini asked. 115%. Bliff nearly choked on his swig of grog again. And how long can you run redline? Park waited for Bliff to finish a swig. He noticed, smiled, and put the thermos down. Okay, I'm ready. With all 4 engines and fuel capacity, before leak it would have been 35 days. Dear Goddess, Passini whispered. The Bongwang's engines are state-of-the-art. We were in dry dock for 3 months of retrofit and upgrades. We're classified as an extreme hauler. 500 billion metric tons is not her limit. Passini was concerned. The very thought of having such a powerful craft hit her with awe. The scuttle had been true. Park leaned in. Passini, with your cut you can upgrade or get a new hauler. Several more trips like this and you could beef up to a mega pusher. That's my goal. After this haul, the Bongwang would dry dock again for more upgrades. I planned on getting 4 more aft engines, additional fuel tanks, and 3 remote anchor engine pods. We'd be able to drag 2 or 3 more additional smaller asteroids into transfer orbit. Park. Bliff watched closely. He saw it on his captain's face. He saw her hunger and the allure that came off it. The silence hung for several awkward seconds. Tenzin realized that his captain was taking a liking to Passini. The moment she stepped on board, he saw how Park's body language changed. Personally, he hoped to one day warm her bed, but he knew Park wasn't into men. At least not overly masculine men. Her taste leaned gynosexuality. But then again, he saw great things happening with Park. If she partnered with Passini, there would be the question of hierarchy. Would Bliff outrank him? How exactly would he fit in a new power structure? He looked over to Bliff, who was equally concerned. Would the partnership involve a 2-ship operation or a single vessel? Both gave a subdued, nervous laugh and nodded. Passini's mind raced. She knew what she wanted to say. The question was how to say it and not sound desperate. This moment felt right but scary at the same time. Park, she said a second time. Park waited. Please ask the question was her thought. Yes. Ever thought about a partnership? At that moment, Cookie entered. To show our gratefulness and celebrate our partnership, he set a shepherd's pie in the center table, the tradition. The top was a lovely collection of browns, yellows, and tan. The cheese was still bubbly along the edges. He set down additional thermos of grog, plus 2 packets of Pinot Grigio. Each he placed in front of Park and Passini. Park clasped her hands. Wonderful, Cookie, this looks delicious. Cookie smiled. Aye, Captain, perfection. He scooped up small portions to each person, collected spent food tubes and dirty dishes. Would you be needing anything else, Captain? I think we are good, Cookie, but have someone at the ready for at least another couple of hours. Aye, ma'am, always. He left humming an old shanty. Park turned to Passini. I'm glad you asked. I have considered a partnership. I read your bio and that of your crew. Transitory crew thought you even and fair, that's good in any book. Passini visibly relaxed and smiled. The Vandu was committed. A door opened, and she willingly crossed the threshold. Year 8. Year 8, month 2, week 3, day 3 hour, 21 minute 3, second 57. Earth date, 802030321357. Chapter 13. Linda had been monitoring the situation between the Vandu and Bongwang. The last transmitted log was that Vandu was in contact with Bongwang and started to rendezvous with a soft landing on the asteroid. She had read the bios of each captain. Both spent multiple years in space, both former military, both highly respected in their respective circles. Park, however, had an aptitude for numbers and astronavigational computations. So far, no other person could match her ability until now. She had to tell Gale. Ted floated in and sat at the nav station. How goes the evening? Pretty quiet. Good news is that Vandu rendezvoused with the Bongwang. Captain Park reported several hours ago that repairs would take another week. Linda checked the ship-to-command inbox. There were about 100 new messages. Some were from various inbound or outbound crafts. One ship, the Wakanda, was en route with a 5 billion-ton asteroid. The record was 120 billion. It was about 10 days out from transfer orbit. Good, getting good news is great, Ted sighed. Something's wrong, Linda said. You say that like you know. I listened to the scuttle, and... Ted interrupted. Scuttle, you've been hanging out with the pilots. Linda smiled. Of course you'd be surprised. Ted leaned forward. And what is the most talked about scuttle? We're behind schedule by 3 months. Figuratively, Ted nearly fell out of the seat. That's been a tightly held secret. The one you were going to tell me a minute ago. Point. Okay, what else does the scuttle say? There may be one, or Emnor ob uno on every hauler. Ted was silent for a moment. He let his thoughts drift. We've had 5 accidents this week alone. 3 ships have been sabotaged. That includes the Bongwang. The Governing Ring Independence Division is thinking of stepping up security. Some members are talking about extensive background checks and tagging everyone on this station with tracking implants. That's horrible. Hauler crew will be tagged, and all haulers will send telemetry data 24/7. I see, was all Linda could muster. Ted nodded. It is that bad. Then, we have too many goddamn arrogant delusional males running too many countries. Almost every day is a cockfight. An alarm went off. Linda typed in a command on her CRT. Oh, my goddess, it's BDEX water supply, contamination. Ted, grim, nodded. Maybe I'll recommend the implants. Before Linda could respond, Ted sped out. She sighed. Maybe tracking implants is a solution. The water supply poisoned. That was a step too far gone. Passini rolled over. She was in Park's bed. She considered her options carefully and decided to commit completely. A space captain's life can be a very lonely one. You have choices that are almost always bad. Sleeping with crew compromises your authority. Sleeping with your first mate or command staff has its own risks. Plenty of lubricate and towels is always the fallback. Park rolled over. How are you feeling, Tekla? Passini nodded. I'm feeling good. 2 hours later. Park, Passini, Kirk, Bliff, and Tenzin were assembled in the front deck. Park tapped in a command to communicate with the Vandu. Passini gave her the code to talk directly to engineering. Engineering here. Passini said, Ga-ka. Yes, ma'am. Can you prepare a list of engine parts the Vandu badly needs? Certainly, ma'am. Who gets it? Kirk spoke up. Chief, this is Kirk, chief engineer to the Bongwang. You can send it to the Bongwang response inbox. We have some spare parts. Some parts we had to pull from our engines, but they're still good. There was an audible ping from Kirk's CRT. He looked at it and laughed. Ga-ka, wow. Ga-ka replied, I know. Finance has been lean and you did ask for a list of badly needed parts. Kirk scanned down to the bottom. Wait, you got a cold infuser. We do. I'd love to replace that first. As of now, the Vandu can safely red line at .95 for only a few hours. My friend, I got one for you. You'll red line at over 1.05 easily. There was silence for a moment. Passini said, "Gaw-caw, you there?" "Yes, ma'am. I had to find a towel to wipe my eyes. Hold on, I have to compose myself." Everyone could tell he choked out the last words. Kirk tapped something on his CRT. "McDonald." "Yes, boss." "I sent you a list of parts. Pack what we can spare and prepare it for the Vandu." "On it, out." A few seconds later, Kirk's CRT beeped. Kirk hit the speaker icon, blinking in the lower right corner. McDonald's voice rushed out, "Boss, seriously." Kirk laughed, "Very. And this ship is still running." Passini blushed. Kirk replied, "Speaker on and guest on deck." McDonald said, "Sorry, ma'am, but goddess, my heart." McDonald. "Yes, boss." "Out." Kirk tapped the speaker icon to disconnect the call. Year 8. Year 8 month, 2 week 4 day 4 hour 12 minute 13 second 11. Earth date, 802050412311. Chapter 14. Park sat at the controls with Tenzin and Kirk at their stations. Passini and Bliff were back on board the Vandu. "Vandu, how are you on your end?" "Bongweng is set." The Bongweng was bolted far aft the asteroid along its longest axis. With the help of Ga-Ka and his team, Kirk was able to get Bongweng's engines 3 and 180% effective with better-than-expected directional control. The Vandu was bolted far stern, perpendicular into the asteroid. The Vandu would act as steering, rolling the asteroid when needed. Both ships, working together, allowed for pitch and yaw. Passini checked her controls. "Bliff, ready." "Yes, ma'am." Passini pressed the comm button. "Bongweng, the Vandu is ready, set to sink, now." Park confirmed, the Vandu was set and ready. "Kirk, ready." "Yes, ma'am." "Okay, Tenzin, sink." The center monitor blinked on. It showed a wireframe outline of the asteroid, Bongweng, and the Vandu. Park placed her headset on. The VR visor was down. She looked around and saw the multiple floating monitors over each station. She looked at the center monitor and saw a flow on Vandu info readouts. Passini placed a similar-looking headset on, and the same augmented reality on the Vandu was nigh the Bongweng. "Sync is confirmed," Passini said. Park's reply over the headset was, "Confirmed, testing engines." Passini watched the wired image of the Bongweng's lines glow a pale green. Fake-looking flames appeared and disappeared after engines. Then, the wired frame image of the Vandu glowed. Its engines flared and died. "Bongweng, engines sync checked." Park smiled. She said through the headset, "Acknowledged, powering down until 400, over." She heard Passini's reply, "Confirmed, 400, out." Park took off her headset and set it on top the control panel. She unsnapped her harness and gave a light push. She floated above her seat. Grabbing a top ceiling hold, she slid away from the command area to the door. "Tenzin, place crew on mission shift. Set timer to 3:30 for 30-minute alarm." Tenzin nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Timer set, shift status sent, and message sent to department heads and leads." "Kirk." "Yes, ma'am." "Any leads?" Kirk smiled. "Yes, ma'am, down to 2. Passini settled in for a short nap. 10 hours they were going to move a 500 billion-ton asteroid to transfer orbit. The Vandu was only rated at 250 million tons, and that was when the Vandu was new. There was something about Park that excited her. She was a hauler, that was for sure, but she could have been one of the segment designers too. Passini decided Park was exactly where she wanted to be, pushing stones across gravity waves. As Passini started to drift off, her personal comm channel beeped. She yawned, lifted herself out of bed, and drifted to her desk. She pressed the answer audio-only button. "Passini here." She heard Park's voice and immediately pressed the video-audio mode button. Park said, "Hey, you." Her face filled the screen with long wisps of hair slowly floating about her shoulders. "I was hoping to catch you before lights out." Passini smiled. "You did, glad you did. I was just thinking about you." "And I you." Park brought her hand to her face and let several fingers touch her lips. She moved her hand to the screen and lightly brushed the fingers across the screen where she saw Passini's lips. Passini did the same thing. Tomorrow, Odark 100, Bongwing over. Tomorrow, Odark 100, Vandu out. The screen went blank. Passini floated back to bed and drifted to a wonderful handful of hours filled with orgastic dreams. Year 8. Year 8, month 2, week 4, day 4, hour 22, minute 21, second 1. Earth date 80205042222101. Chapter 15. Park had her headset on. She was hit with a flood of information from both ships and the asteroid. Ship-to-ship comm line to both command decks was open. Tenzin, Bliff, start feeding me gravitation data, please. Also, stop all engine telemetry data and life support. Thanks. The barrage of information stopped. Park could now see her command monitor. She started all engines on the Bongwing first. Then she put the Vandu's engines on standby. Tenzin said, "All green, ma'am." Park heard Bliff over the loudspeakers. "Vandu all green, Bongwing." Increasing Vandu's reaction engines and setting aft engines to 85 degrees. Power at 25%. Holding. Tenzin, read off rotation spin, please. Bliff, read out lateral vector, please. The computer displayed relative position to Earth in degrees. Park set Earth as 0 degree. She then set the point 10 million kilometers inward from Earth. She also set a point about 100 million kilometers away from their current position. That was their injection point to a transfer orbit that would short spiral the asteroid to Earth's pickup point. From there, massive mining crafts and haulers would make short work of the asteroid. Park figured it would take 8 months to pulverize their haul, as opposed to weeks from the usually small asteroids her fellow haulers brought in. Tenzin sounded out, estimated 10 hours to rotation stop. Park nodded. Increasing Bongwing aft engines to 50%, burn time 32 hour. Okay, now we watch the numbers. Course correction in 10 hours. Set. She heard Passini over the speakers. Next course correction set to minus 10 hours. And it began. 32 days later. Park studied the display before her eyes. She could see the asteroid was nearly in a perfect course despite odd, weird, and nearly impossible engine shutdowns and fuel leaks. Kirk thought it was one of the reserve engineers. She almost agreed, but there were mishaps when it could not have been the reserve. Increasing aft engines to 95%. Vandu reaction engines at 78%, and Vandu's aft engines increased to 102%. Burn time 1 hour. Gaka said over the speakers, "Engines are green, red line not reached, fuel at 22%. Park checked the Bongwing's fuel. It was at 19%. 57 days later. The entire CSON command staff monitored the Bongwing and Vandu slip the asteroid into a transfer orbit. Linda sat at her station viewing telemetry from the two ships. The insertion point was about 18 minutes away in two-way communications. Linda waited for Park to acknowledge her last transmission. There was a low-level hiss over the overhead speakers. A second later, Linda heard a click. CSON, this is Bongwing. The asteroid is in place. Ping channel is 252.36, over. Linda tapped out the number on her keyboard. A section of her monitor opened a window with streaming numbers. Her communication headset was snug. One ear was covered by a padded earpiece. The end of the boom mic hovered just in front of her lips. She clicked the transmit toggle switch on transceiver box next to her. Bongwing, this is CSON, signal is strong. 5x5, sending haulers ping channel. ETA will be confirmed after receipt of their position. Standby over. Ted had been pacing the entire time. He stopped, looked over to Linda, then his watch. Another 18 minutes before a reply from the Bongwing, and about 9 minutes from the group of haulers already dispatched. The haulers had been made in anticipation of what was expected in asteroid sizes. The Bongwing and others of her class were expected to start bringing in the bigger S and bigger still M-type asteroids. The Bongwing in particular was expected to push the envelope past 1 trillion tons. The speakers boomed. Hauler Group V-Vector 956, acknowledging channel 252.36. Navsync says rendezvous at 556 hours. Linda toggled transmit. Hauler Group V-Vector 956, CSON acknowledged. Transferring mission control to you. Enjoy. Over. Then she tapped on her keyboard. Bongwang, Hauler Group V-Vector 956 en route. ETA 556 hours. Mission transferred. Acknowledge. You are released to return to dock. Over. It took 2 days for the crew of the Bongwang and Vandu to bolt both crafts to the asteroid. It took half a day to unbolt both crafts. Park used small bursts from the reaction engines to move the Bongwang away from the asteroid. With the headset still over her head, she could see the wired image of the Vandu drift away from the asteroid's surface, slowly turn and proceed toward the Bongwang. Park smiled. This was a good mission with stupid large profit. She and Passini agreed to form a new corporation. With the profits from this haul, they would retrofit both ships and add 2 more. Bliff would command one while Tenzin commanded the other. All 4 ships would work as a single unit and work on bringing in asteroids in the 10 or more trillion-ton range. With a capable crew, there was no need to think small. Of course, the first thing to do was find the saboteur. She thought about dispensing Hauler justice and space the bastard, but cooler heads needed to prevail. The bastard would be brought to trial, then spaced. Several moments later, she heard the message from Linda. Park pushed the transmit button in front of her. Seasone, we acknowledge. Hauler Group en route. We are released to dock fall. Out. She pulled the headset away and rested it on a strip of Velcro. She pushed herself out of the chair and aimed for the doorway. Tenzin. Yes, ma'am. Push us out to 100 clicks and hold for the Vandu. She's docking. Tenzin said, Yes, ma'am, as she disappeared into the corridor. Passini handled docking the Vandu to the Bongwang herself. It was slow and precise. She fired the reaction engines in short bursts with long moments of drift in between the burst. She felt the slight bump and heard the click-click-click thump of the locking mechanism. Bliff, she said. Yes, ma'am. Finish up here, please. Bliff said, Yes, ma'am, as she disappeared into the corridor. The airlock door opened, and Park floated midair. Passini drifted into her arms, and the kiss was soft, but the embrace was passionate. How are you feeling? Park asked. Feeling good, Passini replied. The second, third, fourth, and fifth kiss completed conversation. Thank you for listening to E Pluribus Unum. This is the end of Season 1. If you liked this story, please like and subscribe to our channel. We appreciate you for listening. Whimsical Node is committed to producing and providing the best quality stories possible. All stories are written by humans. Thank you again, and until then.
60 million years to pass, notes of debris set to sound. It is played loud and strong to pummel from above on waters, cities, and lands. A scientist looks to the sky, her thoughts secure humankind's fate. Doom is set, there is an end date. A plan is presented, all nations agree. Humans will not die. Coming together with one goal, one task. Our destiny is not to fade or drift away, but working as one. Our mark is here, it will stay. Eat where it will stay. Eat Pluribus Unum, a place for all to exist. One from many is the cry, many nations to one people. In the shadows awaits, set to destroy. Glory to God, His might will be obeyed. The many against the one, sabotage, sacrifice, chaos. The plan for one must never be. A friend's embrace, love is secure. Coded whispers, forever here, unafraid. A pilot of great resolve, strength and control. Into the rocks at her command. Vandu rising side by side, conquering the dust beast. Success today, coming together in a feast. E Pluribus Unum, one from many, all to see. Build our arcs massive and grand, break the bonds of gravity. E Pluribus Unum, hearts on fire, a symphony of hope, one voice to inspire. From many the one, the stars belong to us. A new it shall be done.
Thank you for listening to the complete audiobook of A Pluribus Unum, written by J. Carhayaken Jones,